It was the third year in the reign of Jehoiakim, king of Judah. The sky over Jerusalem burned orange as the sun dipped behind the city walls. Then a shadow, vast and slow, began to rise in the distance. It wasn't just an army, it was Babylon, and Babylon didn't come for peace. With the force of a tidal wave, the most feared empire of its time swept through the city. Gates splintered, streets erupted into chaos. The temple, once the heart of worship, was ransacked. Holy relics were seized like trophies, and the nobility, Judah's young princes and leaders, were shackled and dragged away into exile. Among the captives was one who seemed no different from the rest, yet history would mark his name forever: Daniel. But this is more than a story about kings and kingdoms. It's bigger than ancient wars or empires long gone. This is a story that stretches across time. From Babylon's throne rooms to the final pages of prophecy, Daniel's life echoes beyond his own era. Some say he only saw the world around him. Others believe he saw what's still to come. What if the visions sealed for ages are about to unfold? The wise will understand. Back in Jerusalem, long before the walls crumbled, the people had heard the low rumble of drums before they ever saw the smoke. The guards on the walls cried out, but everyone already knew it was too late. Babylon was here. Nebuchadnezzar's army marched like a living storm. City after city had already fallen. Jerusalem was next. When the soldiers crashed through the gates, the invasion was swift and merciless. Homes were looted, families torn apart. Even the temple, the place where the name of God once dwelled, was violated. Every sacred vessel was stolen, packed up, and hauled across deserts to a temple that served idols. But Babylon wasn't just after gold, it was after minds. Nebuchadnezzar gave a command.
Choose the best of Israel's youth, the sharpest minds, the strongest bodies, the most gifted in wisdom. Bring them to me. Teach them our language, our customs, our gods. Let them forget who they were. Let them serve me.
So they were taken, handpicked. Young nobles and future leaders, ripped from their homes, marched into the unknown. Everything familiar left behind. But from that group of exiles, 4 names would rise, and history would never forget them. Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah. They had no idea what was coming, no clue what Babylon had in store. But deep in their hearts, one thing was solid: they would stay faithful to their God, even in a land that wasn't theirs. The road was long and harsh. Dust clung to their skin like ash. And when they finally reached the towering gates of Babylon, they were met with a sight that could make anyone forget where they came from. Golden towers stretched towards the sky. Colossal temples shimmered in the sunlight. The legendary hanging gardens floated like a dream. It was more than a city. It was power made visible. And now these young men from Judah were expected to adapt, to learn its language, study its philosophies, eat from its table. But Babylon didn't just want to educate them, it wanted to remake them. The first move was their names.
They shall no longer be called Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. These names speak of a forgotten God. From now on, they'll carry names that honor ours.
So Daniel became Belteshazzar, Hananiah was renamed Shadrach, Mishael became Meshach, Azariah was now Abednego. It was more than a name change, it was a strategy. Babylon wasn't just trying to educate them, it was trying to erase them, strip away their faith, their identity, their roots. Then came the temptation. Lavish feasts laid out before them, roasted meats, rare wines poured into cups of gold. Every dish whispered the same message.
Forget where you came from. You belong to us now.
But the fire in their hearts said otherwise. But Daniel paused. His heart beat fast. The smell of the king's food filled the room. Rich meats, spices he couldn't name, flavors he'd never tasted. Everything about it pulled at him. But deep inside, a quiet voice whispered, "Don't do it." This wasn't just food, this was devotion. The king's meals were offered to false gods. To eat was to bow, to accept their ways, to lose a piece of who he was. Daniel looked around. The city was foreign, his home was gone, his people were scattered like dust in the wind. He had nothing left, except his faith. My God still reigns. His eyes met those of his friends. No words needed. They stood together. He stepped up to the chief of the eunuchs and said,
"Let us eat only vegetables. Give us just water. Test us for 10 days, then compare us with the others."
The official hesitated. The king wanted strong servants, not weak ones. But something about Daniel's quiet confidence made him agree. 10 days passed. When they stood before the court, Daniel and his friends looked different, stronger, sharper, their eyes clear, their bodies ready. They had no need for Babylon's table. The God of Israel had fed them. Years went by. Daniel and his friends kept growing in wisdom, standing out in the royal court of Babylon. The king's own advisors, his magicians and astrologers, couldn't match them. They were 10 times wiser, sharper, more insightful. But even the wisest men in Babylon weren't ready for what came next. One night, King Nebuchadnezzar had a dream. Not just any dream, a haunting vision that shook him to the core. All the splendor of his empire, all the glory of Babylon, it didn't give him peace. Something in the dream gnawed at him. He felt it in his bones. This dream meant something bigger, something urgent. So he summoned his wise men.
"Bring me the magicians, the sorcerers, the enchanters," he ordered. "I want them to tell me what this dream means."
The magicians stood before the throne, waiting for the king to describe the dream. But Nebuchadnezzar wasn't playing their game.
"I don't just want the interpretation,"
he said.
"Tell me the dream itself. If you're truly wise, you'll know it without me saying a word."
They stared at each other, stunned. No king had ever demanded such a thing. One of them finally spoke up.
"O king, live forever. Just tell us the dream and we'll explain it."
"No,"
the king snapped.
"If you don't tell me both the dream and the meaning, you'll all be executed. But if you do, I'll reward you beyond measure."
They pleaded. They stalled. They insisted only the gods could reveal something like that. But the king's fury burned hot. He ordered the execution of every wise man in Babylon, and that included Daniel. When I heard what was happening, I felt the ground fall beneath me. This wasn't just cruel, it was about to happen. The sentence had been passed. Every wise man was doomed, unless God did something. I ran to my friends.
"Pray,"
I told them.
"We have to pray. We need God to reveal this mystery to us."
That night, in a vision, God answered. The dream was shown to me. At dawn, I stood before the king.
"Can you tell me the dream and what it means?"
he asked.
"No wise man, no magician or astrologer can reveal what you asked," I replied. "But there is a God in heaven who reveals mysteries. He has shown me your dream and its meaning." "This is what you saw," I said. "A massive statue, majestic and terrifying. Its head was gold, its chest and arms were silver, its belly and thighs bronze, its legs iron, and its feet a mix of iron and clay. Then suddenly a stone, cut not by human hands, struck the statue at its feet. And the whole thing shattered, gold, silver, bronze, iron, clay, all turned to dust, blown away by the wind. But that stone became a mountain, and it filled the whole earth. That was your dream. And here's what it means. You, O king, are the head of gold. Your kingdom is strong and glorious, but it won't last. Another kingdom will rise after you, lesser than yours, then another, and another, each one falling until the last is weak, divided, brittle. But in the end, God will build a kingdom that will never fall, a kingdom not made by men. one that will outlast every empire. That stone you saw, that's God's eternal kingdom."
The room went still. Nebuchadnezzar looked at me, then at his magicians, still silent, still useless, and then he bowed.
"Truly,"
he said,
"your God is the God of gods and the Lord of kings. He alone reveals hidden things."
From that day on, I was lifted up in Babylon, made ruler over the entire province and leader of the king's wise men. But I knew something the king didn't. His empire, like every empire, would fall. Time passed, and Babylon kept its hold on the world. But the stone was already coming. At the peak of his reign, when his power was unmatched, Nebuchadnezzar still remembered the dream, the vision of the great statue. But deep down, he refused to accept its meaning. If he was the head of gold, why should anything come after him? Why should his rule ever end? So he made a choice, bold, defiant, and loud. He ordered a statue to be built, but not like the one in his dream. This one was entirely gold, head to toe. Towering over 27 meters tall, it wasn't just a monument. It was a message. His kingdom would not fade. It would not be replaced. This was his line in the sand. He called for the whole empire to witness it. Rulers, governors, princes, counselors, everyone. They were all summoned to the plain of Dura to see the statue and bow before it. Then came the voice of the herald, echoing across the plain.
"People of every nation and tongue, when you hear the sound of the trumpet, flute, harp, and every kind of music, you are to fall down and worship the golden image set up by King Nebuchadnezzar. And whoever does not bow will be thrown immediately into the blazing furnace."
The instruments played, the ground trembled under the sound, and across the vast plain, thousands dropped to their knees. From the mighty to the lowly, all bowed, all except three. Word got out quickly. The Babylonian officials ran to the king, eager to report the defiance.
"O king, live forever," they said. "There are some Jews, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, whom you appointed over the province of Babylon. They've ignored your command. They refuse to serve your gods. They will not bow."
Nebuchadnezzar was furious. Rage burned in his chest. He ordered the three men to be brought before him, and he gave them one final chance. He looked them in the eye, his voice sharp and heavy with threat.
"Is it true, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego? You refuse to worship the image I've made. I'll give you one more chance. When you hear the music, fall down and worship. If you refuse, you will be thrown into the blazing furnace. And then, what God can rescue you from my hand?"
But the three young men didn't flinch. Shadrach stepped forward, steady and unshaken, his voice carried across the court.
"O Nebuchadnezzar, we don't need to defend ourselves before you. The God we serve is able to save us from the furnace, and he will rescue us from your hand, O king. But even if he does not, we still won't worship your statue."
The king's face twisted with fury. He ordered the furnace to be heated 7 times hotter than normal. He called for the strongest men in his army, and they bound the three and dragged them toward the fire. The flames were so fierce they killed the soldiers who threw them in. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego vanished into the blaze. To all watching, it was over. But then Nebuchadnezzar rose to his feet, eyes wide.
"Wait, didn't we throw 3 men bound into the fire?"
His guards nodded. "Yes, O king."
"Then why do I see 4, unbound, walking freely in the fire? And the 4th, he looks like a son of the gods."
A stunned silence fell over the crowd. The fire raged, but inside it the impossible was happening. The 3 men were untouched, and a radiant figure stood beside them. No one could explain what they saw, only that it defied everything they knew. Nebuchadnezzar stumbled forward, voice trembling as he shouted into the flames,
"Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, servants of the Most High God, come out."
And they did. They stepped out of the fire. Their bodies were whole. Not a single hair was burned. Their clothes didn't even smell of smoke. No one spoke. They all knew what had happened. The God of Israel had answered. The most powerful king in the world dropped to his knees.
Blessed be the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. No other God can save like this. From now on, no one in my kingdom will speak against their God, for there is no one like him.
He honored them and raised them high in Babylon. But though the city rejoiced, Nebuchadnezzar had not yet learned what mattered most. Not really. Despite the dreams, despite the fire, despite seeing it all with his own eyes, he still didn't get it. He still thought his power was his own, that his kingdom was eternal, that his glory belonged to him. He didn't know yet that all of it was borrowed, that all of it was allowed, and soon he'd be reminded. Babylon stood proud, wrapped in walls no enemy had ever breached. To the world it was untouchable, an empire carved in stone and gold. But far to the east, a storm was building, a rising force, the Medes and Persians, gathered under the command of a name that would soon strike fear across nations: Cyrus the Great. His army drew closer, but King Belshazzar didn't flinch. While his enemies plotted, he partied. That night Babylon pulsed with celebration. Gates were locked, guards were posted, and the king felt safe behind his towering walls. So he threw a lavish banquet. Music, wine, women, 1,000 nobles feasted with him under golden light. Then pride tipped into blasphemy. Belshazzar raised his cup and said,
Bring me the sacred vessels, those gold and silver ones my father took from the Hebrew temple. Let's drink from them to honor our gods.
And they came, the very vessels stolen from Jerusalem's temple by King Nebuchadnezzar. With sacred cups in hand, Belshazzar and his nobles raised toasts to idols of gold and silver, bronze and stone. But the mood shifted. The music stopped. Laughter died. Eyes froze. Because on the palace wall, something impossible began to unfold. A hand, just a hand, disembodied, silent, glowing in the shadows. It floated above the wall and began to write. The letters blazed like fire. The words were foreign. Terror gripped the room. Belshazzar's face went pale. His knees buckled. His heart thundered in his chest. He screamed,
Call the magicians, the wise men, the astrologers. Tell me what this means.
They came. They stared. They whispered. But no one could decipher the writing. No one knew what it said. Panic thickened until the queen stepped forward.
"O king,"
she said,
"there is a man in your kingdom who holds the spirit of the gods. In your father's time, he could interpret dreams and solve mysteries. His name is Daniel."
And Daniel was summoned. Belshazzar leaned forward, desperate.
Are you Daniel, the wise man of my father's court? Interpret this writing, and I will clothe you in purple, place gold on your neck, and make you third in command of my kingdom.
Daniel looked at the king and said,
Keep your gifts. Give your rewards to someone else, but I will tell you what the writing means.
He turned to the wall. The letters still glowed. But before he read them, he spoke.
O king, hear me. Your father, Nebuchadnezzar, was lifted high over the earth. But when pride overtook him, he was humbled. He lived like a wild animal until he understood this. The Most High rules over the kingdoms of men. But you, Belshazzar, you knew all this, and still you lifted yourself against heaven. You desecrated God's vessels. You honored lifeless idols of metal and stone. You have not honored the God who holds your breath in his hands. And so he has written this.
Daniel pointed. The room was silent. The words were still burning.
Mene, mene, tekel, parsin.
And then came the meaning. Mene. God has counted the days of your reign and brought it to an end. Tekel. You have been weighed in the balance and found lacking. Parsin, your kingdom is divided and given to the Medes and Persians. The words struck like thunder. Belshazzar sat frozen, but he wouldn't have time to react, because even as Daniel spoke, the city had already been breached. In the dark, unseen and unheard, Persian troops were inside Babylon. Cyrus had outwitted the mighty city. He diverted the Euphrates River, leaving its riverbed dry. While Belshazzar toasted false gods, his enemies walked in through the drained river like ghosts. By morning, Babylon had fallen. Belshazzar was dead, and the greatest empire the world had ever known collapsed in a single night, just as Daniel had declared. Because kingdoms rise and fall, but the kingdom of God endures forever. Babylon had fallen. The Medes and Persians now held the reins of the empire. Cyrus the Great appointed Darius the Mede to govern Babylon and its provinces, and though rulers rose and fell, Daniel remained. His wisdom, integrity, and unwavering faith made him stand out among the officials of this new kingdom. Darius recognized it and placed him above all the princes and governors of the empire. But power invites envy, and when a man walks closely with God, the world takes notice, and often it hates what it sees. So the nobles whispered behind closed doors. One of the Mede princes scoffed.
This Daniel, why does he rule over us? A foreigner, a Hebrew, raised up by every king he serves.
Another joined in.
We need to find something, some mistake, some hidden flaw.
But they found nothing. Daniel was clean. There was no scandal, no corruption, just quiet, faithful obedience. So they changed their approach.
If we can't trap him with fault, we'll trap him with faith.
They came to Darius, all smiles and flattery.
O king, live forever. We've come together to honor your majesty. Sign a decree, make it law, that for 30 days no one may pray to any god or man except to you, O king. And if they do, let them be thrown into the lion's den.
Darius, flattered and unaware of their plot, signed the decree. It was official, irrevocable, unchangeable, and Daniel knew it. He heard the decree. He understood exactly what it meant, what it would cost him. Still, he didn't hesitate. He didn't hide. When the time came to pray, Daniel went to his room, opened his windows toward Jerusalem, and, just as he'd always done, knelt down and prayed. Outside, they were watching.
There he is, we've got him, worry.
They raced to the palace.
O king,
they said with mock concern,
did you not sign a law that forbids prayer to anyone but you?
Darius nodded.
Yes, and the law of the Medes and Persians cannot be revoked.
They smiled.
Then Daniel, your servant, has broken it. 3 times a day he prays to his God.
The king froze, his face turned pale. He knew at once he'd been trapped. They weren't honoring him, they were using him, and now his most trusted servant was condemned by his own hand. But the law was binding. There was no way out.
Take him,
Darius said quietly. As night fell on Babylon, Daniel was brought to the den. The lions growled behind the stone walls. The firelight flickered in their eyes. The king was there, grieved, helpless. He looked at Daniel and said,
your God, whom you serve without fail, he will deliver you.
They lowered Daniel in. The stone was rolled across the mouth of the den, sealed with the king's ring. That night, Darius couldn't sleep. No music, no food, just silence, and the question haunting his mind, would Daniel's God come through? At first light, the king rushed to the den. Breathless, he called out,
Daniel, servant of the living God, has your God saved you from the lions?
For a heartbeat, nothing. Then came the voice, calm, alive, echoing from the dark.
O king, live forever. My God sent his angel to shut the lions' mouths. They didn't touch me, for I was found innocent before him. and before you."
The guards rolled the stone away. They peered inside. Daniel stood tall, not a scratch on him. The lions, silent and still, lay beside him like tamed beasts. Darius fell to his knees. He ordered Daniel to be lifted out and his accusers thrown in, and before their bodies hit the ground, the lions pounced. That very day, Darius issued a new decree across the empire.
"To all peoples, nations, and languages, peace to you. I command that throughout my kingdom everyone must fear and honor the God of Daniel, for he is the living God. His kingdom will never fall. His reign will never end. He rescues, he delivers, and he performs signs and wonders in heaven and on earth. He has delivered Daniel from the power of the lions."
And Daniel lived on, prospering in the reign of Darius, and later in the days of Cyrus the Great. Empires may rise, kings may fall, but God remains. Daniel had served kings. He had watched thrones change hands. But he was about to see something far greater, something beyond Babylon, beyond Persia, beyond the present. For even before Babylon fell, in the first year of Belshazzar's reign, Daniel had seen a dream, a vision of what was still to come, a glimpse into the destiny of the world. "I saw the great sea, wild and restless, stirred by the winds of heaven. Out of its depths rose 4 great beasts, each unlike the others, creatures of power and mystery. The first appeared like a lion, but it had the wings of an eagle. I watched as its wings were torn away. Then it stood upright on 2 feet like a man, and a man's heart was given to it. Then came another beast, like a bear. It was raised up on one side, and in its mouth were 3 ribs, clenched between its teeth. After this, I saw a third beast, like a leopard, but it had 4 wings on its back, and 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. Then came the fourth. Unlike any of the others, it was terrifying, dreadful, beyond compare. With teeth of iron, it crushed and devoured, trampling whatever stood in its path. 10 horns crowned its head, and it was stronger than all the beasts before it. As I stared, another horn appeared, small at first, but different. It had eyes like a man, and a mouth that spoke with arrogant pride. Daniel trembled. What did it mean? What were these beasts? And who was this horn that dared to defy heaven? But before answers came, the vision shifted. For this was not just about kingdoms of earth. I kept watching. Thrones were set in place, and the Ancient of Days took his seat. His clothes were white like snow, his hair like pure wool. His throne was fire, blazing and alive. A river of flame poured out before him. Thousands served him. Millions stood in his presence. And then the books were opened, and I saw one like a son of man riding the clouds of heaven. He approached the Ancient of Days and was given authority, glory, and a kingdom. His rule is everlasting. His kingdom will never fall. My spirit churned within me. I was shaken. I had to understand more about the fourth beast and that little horn that waged war against the saints. An angel came near to explain, and he spoke these words.
The 4 beasts are 4 kingdoms that will rise from the earth, but the holy ones of the Most High, they will receive a kingdom that lasts forever. The 4th beast is different, fierce. It will conquer with iron and terror. 10 kings will rise from it, and after them a smaller one. This horn will speak against the Most High. It will persecute the saints. It will attempt to change the times and the law, and it will have power for a time, times, and half a time. But then the court of heaven will sit in judgment. Its power will be broken, and the kingdom will be handed to the holy ones of the Most High, his people forever.
When Daniel awoke, his face was pale. His body trembled.
My spirit was troubled. I couldn't make sense of it all. But I knew this much. Kingdoms rise and fall. And in the end, God's kingdom will remain forever.
Daniel had seen the rise and fall of empires. He had witnessed in a vision the towering glory of God's eternal kingdom, unshaken, unending. But one question still echoed deep within his soul. When would his people return? When would the exile be over? When would Jerusalem rise again? Haunted by these questions, Daniel turned to the scrolls. He opened the words of the prophet Jeremiah and found the answer written long ago. 70 years, the prophecy said. 70 years must pass for Jerusalem's desolation. The weight of it brought him to his knees. He lifted his voice in prayer, trembling before the throne of heaven.
O Lord, great and awesome God, we have sinned. We turned away from your laws. We've been unfaithful, and we deserve the judgment that fell on us. But now, Lord, hear me. Look upon your ruined city. Forgive us, restore us, turn your face again toward Jerusalem.
He prayed with all his heart, and heaven responded. Suddenly an angel descended, Gabriel. Radiant and resolute, he stood before the prophet and spoke with power.
Daniel, you who are deeply loved, I have come to give you insight and understanding. 70 weeks have been decreed for your people, to finish transgression, to put an end to sin, to atone for iniquity, and to bring in everlasting righteousness. From the command to rebuild Jerusalem until the coming of the Anointed One, the Prince, there will be 7 weeks and 62 weeks. Then the Anointed One will be cut off, but not for himself. The city and the sanctuary will be destroyed by the people of a coming ruler. Its end will come with a flood, and war will continue until the end, with desolations already set. He will make a firm covenant for 1 week, but in the middle of that week he will put a stop to sacrifices and offerings. And on the wing of the temple will come the abomination of desolation, until judgment falls on the one who brings ruin.
Daniel sat still, the words heavy with meaning. They were veiled, mysterious, but they held the key. The secret of the Messiah's coming, the future of his people. But this was only the beginning. More visions were still to come. In the 3rd year of Cyrus, king of Persia, a vision was given to Daniel, a revelation that shook his spirit and stripped him of peace.
I, Daniel, mourned for 3 weeks. I ate no rich food, drank no wine, touched no oil. On the 24th day of the 1st month, I stood by the great Tigris River. I looked up, and there he was, a man clothed in linen, his waist wrapped in gold. His face flashed like lightning, his eyes blazed like fire, and his voice thundered like the roar of rushing waters. When I saw him, strength left me. I collapsed face down, overwhelmed. The glory of heaven had found me. I could barely breathe, but then a hand touched me, and I was lifted.
Do not be afraid, Daniel. From the moment you set your heart to understand, your words were heard in heaven. But the Prince of Persia resisted me for 21 days. Now I have come to show you what will happen in the latter days, for the vision concerns the time of the end.
And then came the final vision, the most sweeping and staggering of all. Daniel saw the future stretched before him. Clashing kingdoms, Persia and Greece locked in war, a ruthless king rising in the last days, and a coming tribulation that would break the world apart.
At that time, Michael, the great prince who guards your people, will arise, and there will be a time of distress, unlike anything the world has ever known. But your people will be delivered. Multitudes who sleep in the dust will awake, some to everlasting life, others to shame and eternal contempt. The wise will shine like the brightness of the heavens, and those who lead many to righteousness will shine like the stars forever. But you, Daniel, seal these words until the time of the end. Many will search, knowledge will grow.
Daniel stood in awe. He had seen it all, the rise and fall of kings, the coming of the Messiah, the suffering of nations, the resurrection of the dead. But the vision closed.
I heard, Daniel said, but I did not understand. So I asked, My lord, what will be the outcome of all this?
Go your way, Daniel. These words are sealed until the end. Many will be refined and tested. The wicked will remain blind, but the wise will understand. And you, rest, for at the end of days you will rise to receive your inheritance.
And so the book ended. The future still hidden, the mysteries still locked. But one thing stood firm. God writes history. Empires rise and fall, thrones crumble, but his kingdom does not fade. And when the end comes, the faithful will rise and shine like the stars forever. If you're still here watching this, thank you, truly, for walking with us through the journey of the book of Daniel. Now, we need your help to keep going. If this moved you, if it made you think or gave you something deeper, share it, like the video, drop a comment, and above all, hit that subscribe button, because very soon we're diving into more cinematic, powerful stories that explore the mysteries of Scripture and the prophecies still waiting to unfold. And before you head out, check out the 2 videos on your screen. One takes you into the origin story of Lucifer, the devil himself, where we explore the ancient mystery of the fallen angels and how they changed the course of humanity. The other, a deep dive into the apocalypse. Pick one, hit play. Keep discovering the hidden truths in the Word. We'll see you in the next one. God bless. Amen.